There was a big change that we were very much hoping to happen. 700,000 euros per person, per individual. So you got to be exceeding 10 million euro. A big important question is how can I mitigate this tax, right?
It's the famous and very misunderstood wealth tax. Taxes in Spain are one of the biggest concerns for buyers and investors coming to this country. And wealth tax is one of the most misunderstood. Why? Because it's applied differently across different regions, different rates, and it's a real chaotic thing to understand. Today, we're joined by Miguel Manzanares, local property expert and tax expert, and we're gonna dive deep into all and everything you need to know about wealth tax in Spain. Are you guys ready? Let's go. Right, Miguel, welcome back to the channel.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you on here.
It's my pleasure.
I think the last time you were on here, we did the video on the process of buying in Spain. Today, it's got 77,000 views. People love you on the channel. So
thank you very much.
It's great to have your face back on. So Miguel, what I want to talk about today is something which comes across the buyer's journey or investor's journey when they're looking to buy property in Spain, but also in Andalusia. It's the famous and very misunderstood wealth tax, right? So it applies differently across different regions. It's a bit of a chaotic, it's very quite difficult to understand for investors. Can we start by defining what wealth tax is and how it applies?
Well, it applies to every region of Spain. In Spain, the geography of Spain is divided by 17 different territories that we call them autonomías, which is a kind of equivalent to an state. So therefore, 17 different autonomías with capacity of legislation about certain taxes like wealth taxes, right? So therefore, in theory, we could be facing 17 different ways of treating the wealth tax.
Wow.
Of course, we are in the region of Andalusia, and we can really talk about Andalusia. Andalusia used to have an exemption of the first bracket of 700,000 euros per person, per individual. And this is important because sometimes you have a property under the name of husband and wife. So therefore, we divide the property price, let's say €1 million, in between two co-owners. So therefore, each one of them has a wealth of 500,000 euros, right? So therefore, 700,000 euros per individual was the initial bracket that was exempt of a wealth tax. So that was the way that it was regulated, and after that, it was really suffering different historical regulations. There was a big change that we were very much hoping to happen in similarity of what it happened before in Madrid, that was that wealth tax was exempt. Therefore, after we were pretty much celebrating, on the few months after that celebration of no wealth tax was applicable anymore, then the national government created a tax called Solidarity Wealth Tax that applies only after the 3 million euro wealth per person.
So it was 700,000, and now with the new solidarity tax, it's 3 million per person.
It's 3 million per person. So effectively, in Andalusia, you have to have more than 3.7 million euro, 300, that is the bracket exempt of solidarity tax.
So up to 3.7 million euro in property value, you're exempt?
You're exempt.
But this is only for residents, obviously?
It's for residents, are also for non-residents in Spain. This is for non-residents in Spain, because the non-residents in Spain have to bear in mind that this is a wealth that they have in Andalusia.
In Spain, okay.
Yeah, let's say Andalusia, because the taxation that I am going to be talking about is specifically of Andalusia. If we convey this same wealth to Coruña or Bilbao or Valencia, there will be a different region of Spain with a different legislation, and consequently it could be different.
Okay.
Now that we are going to a global international market, let's really say this is Andalusia, 3.7 million euro is free of wealth tax. And the way to apply this is also, we got to consider that we have to offset for this is the net value, the net wealth. And so therefore you can offset the mortgage. So if you have a property of €1,000,000 and you have 500,000 euros mortgage, your net wealth, which is taxable in Andalusia, is only 500.
And how do they value the property? I mean, for example, this is not only property. I'm sure this applies to sort of property, other assets as well, companies, or is it only properties?
No, it's every asset that you may have in Andalusia, right?
Okay.
You have a car, you have a bank account, if you have a parking space or any other kind of asset, property, it's got to be valued. They're really different system. Basically, the I don't want to make it very complicated, but the usual way is by the price that you paid when you bought the property. Yeah. And there really is some correction index that could really bring something that you bought 25 years ago to the 2025 value of that for tax purposes. But that is really the what you've got to consider. So therefore, a big important question is, how can I mitigate this tax, right? Because there is a point in which you have a dilemma about how do I become owner of that property, by me as an individual or with the company. This is something that we will talk about later on. And so therefore you've got to consider what is the net wealth in Andalusia. And sometimes whether a client is considering, I'm not sure if I'm going to borrow 40% of the price or not. So maybe there is a point of consideration to be discussed with the lawyer, and we as lawyers can say, listen, if you borrow 30 or 40%, it's true that you have to pay interest rate to the bank that is lending you that portion of the price, but this is the kind of tax savings that you have.
Interesting.
Because you reduce the gross wealth to something that is the net, and that is something that we have to adapt the purchase to the personal circumstances of each one buying.
So essentially what you're saying is you can engineer backwards, so you effectively are, let's say, hit with a lower tax hit, right? So before you purchase, you could basically look into getting a higher mortgage, so your net sort of wealth value is lower, and you would basically in some cases, specifically like this example, someone that has the money but has also an offer from a bank to lend a specific portion of the price, is a point to consider. Of course, if you are really below certain wealth value, you don't need to do too much, right? Yeah.
But because it's 3.7 per person, is a lot, and then you can divide that value in between as many owners. So if the property is owned by a husband, wife, and a daughter, then you divide the property in between three. Wow. So you got to be exceeding 10 million euro net wealth value to activate this wealth tax for one of the three co-owners. So you can play with the number of owners. You can also adjust the potential offer of a mortgage to to fund the acquisition of that very property, and up to a certain level you can optimize this taxation every year.
That's super interesting. How about the actual tax value? What's the tax bracket? What's the tax percentage? And on what? So you imagine that you do exceed the 3.7 million euros. Is it from that moment onwards that you pay a specific fee? How does that work?
Yeah, exactly. It's from that moment onwards, and then there is. This is a sliding progressive scale. So you have the minimum tax to be applied is 0.20%, and the maximum, I believe, is 3.5%. So that's the top rate
of the exceeding value.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So basically,
of the taxable value.
So if you have, let's say, just easy numbers, you have so 3,700,000. If you exceed and you are at 4.7, right, you would be paying on the 1 million euro excess, and on that €1 million excess, you pay the tax.
Yeah, exactly. It's that way is a little bit more difficult, because you've got to calculate the exempt rate and then put that in perspective with the sliding scale. But yes, in general, yes, it's like you said.
We'll do, Miguel, even better than actually explaining it, Luna. We're going to put the website of Manzanares in the description below. So actually, if you want to know exactly what it is for your case scenario, there you go. It's right there. So Miguel, for that person behind the screen right now, which is listening to this and is considering buying somewhere in Spain, because like we said at the beginning, it's not the same everywhere, right? So obviously that's a fact. What piece of advice would you give them before they come to Spain?
Well, I would like to pay attention and to dedicate a time to considering what is the best formula to become owner of a property in Spain, because we got to face, number one, what kind of taxation I have to attend when buying my property. Then number two, I have to become owner of that property, and consequently every year I have to face taxes to keep that property. That is quite important. Also, second chapter, I would say, to dedicate good analysis. And the third, I would say, what about when I sell my property? How is my taxation if I ever decided to sell this nice property? And the fourth, I would say, is a chapter about the inheritance tax. So therefore, these are the four main chapters that everybody that buys a property should consider. How is my taxation when I buy it? How is my taxation when I maintain that property, when I sell it, and when I have to pass this to my heirs? That's really the four chapters that we will consider, and we have to go to a conclusion about what is the most optimum formula to become owner of that property. When you give that kind of explanation, then the clients feel, okay, I have already a very clear understanding how I'm going to buy my property. I know advantages, I know disadvantages, and I know my final conclusion because it's been done with a tax expert lawyer, with a property lawyer that is going to combine that knowledge towards the best, the most effective formula, which could be very, very important and very expensive if you decided to go in the wrong way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Miguel, I think we've covered absolutely every single part of wealth tax. So thank you very much, obviously, for joining us at High Homes headquarters. Great to have you in the studio again. And we'll actually wrap up by asking you guys to comment below if you have any questions, obviously for Miguel or for us. We'll be happy to get back to you. And like this video if you thought this was useful. And if you are new to this space and you haven't come across us at High Homes before, don't be shy and press that button. Subscribe to the High Homes YouTube channel, and we'll keep you guys posted with content regarding Spanish real estate, Costa del Sol real estate, property updates, and everything you need in your property journey in Spain. So hope you guys enjoyed, and until the next time, guys, hasta luego.
Adiós.